Hey everyone, good morning. I'm out on a morning hike in this beautiful forest. I'm just looking for whatever I can find to photograph. There's plenty of birds out here, plenty of little rodents running around, chipmunk, squirrels. There's some pika down here. Just a wonderful area for photography. You know, it's no secret that I'm completely obsessed with wildlife photography and wildlife videography. So this week I wanted to take a moment to discuss a question that I hear quite often, and that is, how do you decide when to take still images, when to take pictures, versus when to run video when you're with a subject, when you're with some wildlife? So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. There are multiple things that I like to consider when choosing when to take pictures versus when to run video. I'll review these different things that I consider with you, as well as some of the pros and cons to each, and let you make the decision when you're out in the field with your camera. Keep in mind that this is largely personal preference, as there are no set rules when making this decision. The first thing that I like to consider is how much light do I have to work with. We all know that photography is about light. Without light, you don't have any pictures. The same goes for videography, but there are some pretty stark differences when it comes to comparing the two. For example, if I'm out photographing a bird in flight, I know that I'll need enough light to be able to get a fast enough shutter speed to get sharp images of that bird in flight. I usually start off at about 1/2000th of a second, and if I want to achieve that shutter speed without cranking my ISO all the way up, I need a lot of light to work with. Alternatively, if I'm filming the same scene, if I'm running video of a bird in flight, I usually start off with a shutter speed of around 1/50th to 1/60th of a second. I won't go into the details of how to choose shutter speeds when running video. That's not what this video is about, but I'm just using this as an example to show you that I need a lot slower shutter speed when running video versus the high shutter speed if I'm taking pictures. So the amount of light that I have to work with is generally the first thing that I like to consider when choosing if I'm going to take pictures or if I'm going to run video. So on a morning like this, where the sun's just coming up, it's a little bit overcast, I would start off running video until I have enough light to work with to be able to capture sharp images of a moving subject. Now, if I am taking pictures of a subject that's not moving around a lot, doing some like portrait photography of that subject, something like that, of a still subject, then you can get away with a lot slower shutter speeds when taking pictures. But again, if it's a moving subject that I'm dealing with, light is a huge thing that I like to consider first off before I consider any of these other things that I talk about. The next thing that I like to consider are any active goals that I'm working on. I'm a very goal-oriented person, so this might be easier to explain using a few examples. When I set out to photograph a specific species, I generally have a photo goal list and a video goal list. For example, when I set out to photograph brown bears in Alaska, I wanted images of bears catching fish, images of bears wrestling, and images of cubs playing. Because I had those goals in mind, video content wasn't even something I considered when setting out with my camera. As time went on and I began to get the images I wanted, my goals changed, and so my decision on whether to focus on still images or video content also changed. I set out with my camera again, this time with the goal of getting a detailed image of a bear emerging from the water with a fish and eggs pouring out of the fish, but a video goal of bears wrestling. So as I would encounter different scenarios, I already knew what I would focus on before I ever pointed the camera. If you're not a goal-oriented person, that's totally fine. You can go ahead and skip right over this part of the process. The next thing that I like to consider is the type of action happening in front of me. So what do I mean by that? Well, we all have our own personal preferences of what makes an interesting scene, what type of behavior is more memorable to look at as a picture versus a video clip that you might see on YouTube or on TV or something. So when I'm out with my camera, I essentially categorize animal behavior into 3 different categories. And these categories help me determine whether the scene that's taking place in front of me would be better portrayed as a still image hanging on a wall or something would be more memorable that way, or as a video clip shown here on my YouTube channel. Let me give you some examples of each category. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing video clips of fox kits greeting mom or dad when they return home. These video clips can be so much fun, and I've captured quite a few of these clips on video over the years. But in my opinion, photographing this behavior is even better than video content. By photographing these intimate moments, you can capture these beautiful expressions on the faces of the little foxes. It's an exciting moment for these young animals, and there's nothing better than to be able to capture that excitement. So in this category, the image is more memorable and lasting than a video clip. The second category is just the opposite. When you can capture a scene that is more memorable or tells a better story when you can watch it unfold through video rather than just seeing a still image. Some good examples here are when animals do things like yawn or shake. It can be a lot of fun to capture these moments as a photographer, but these are scenes you're probably not going to hang on your wall at home, and in my opinion, they just do better as video. They show the viewer what's happening and gives a greater sense of activity and action. The last category is where the previous two meet. When the scene in front of you looks equally as great and majestic as a still image as it does as a video. Again, this all comes down to personal opinion and will be different for each person. But the more time you spend with wildlife, the quicker you'll learn your own preferences and the quicker you can decide what is best in each scenario. Some other things that you can consider are what gear you actually have with you at the time and how much time you have to capture the scene that's unfolding in front of you. If I'm out hiking without my tripod, I already know that I probably won't be getting any video footage that day. To me, shaky video footage is extremely distracting. So if I don't have my tripod to help stabilize my camera, I just won't shoot any video and I'll focus on getting still images instead. And if I come across some wildlife and there's a scene that's unfolding very quickly in front of me, I don't like to take the time to get my tripod set up, my camera set up, and start running video footage. Instead, I would rather just lift my camera and take pictures that way. There's been so many opportunities that I've missed capturing because I'm taking the time to try to get my video set up when I could have just lifted my camera and captured the scene in front of me. Do I take a picture or do I get video content? As we've discussed, there are some more technical things that you can consider when making this decision. How much light do I have to work with? What gear do I have with me today? And how much time do I have to capture the scene that's unfolding in front of me? But if you've got the light, if you've got the gear, and you've got the time, this really just comes down to personal preference. What do you think is going to be more memorable, a still image or a video clip when looking at a scene that's unfolding in front of you? One of the things that I love most about what I do is that there are no set rules and that I can use my creativity when looking at a scene in front of me and deciding how best to capture it, how to make it most memorable to the viewer and to myself. So next time you're out with your camera and you're trying to decide, is this going to look better as a photograph or should I be getting video clips instead? Consider the things that we've talked about in this video, but most importantly, just be creative and have fun in capturing the scene that's unfolding in front of you. This is a topic that I would love to hear your thoughts on. This is going to be different for every single person watching this video. So let me know what you think down below in the comments. What are some things that you like to consider when making the decision of taking a picture versus getting video clips? I would love to hear from you. Speaking of photography and videography, I've got some pikas calling my name down here, so I'm going to head down and see what I can get of them this morning. Thank you so much for following along this week. We'll see you next time. When do I take a picture and when do I... Freaking bug flew in my mouth. Oh, breakfast.